Okay, so who is responsible for facility stewardship? Seeing that you guys are part of Tim's XP group, I'm going to assume that you all know what the answer is that it all starts at the top with you all. I love this picture of Walt Disney picking up trash at the park. It starts with leadership. So a couple of questions. Are your staff and congregation members entitled, or do they see the facilities have been entrusted to them? Is it the country club that Reggie McNeil talks about in his books? Is it the country club mentality that we're entitled to this, it's member management? Or is it something that's been entrusted to us and we see that we need to take care of it, whether it's monetarily or, as leaders in the congregants, we need to go ahead and pick up the trash ourselves. Is stewarding of the facility only relegated to those on the facility team? Are they the only ones responsible for taking care of the facility? And then the ability to maintain a facility is in direct correlation and priority with the value given the facility manager and team. I have pictures that I will not share of facility managers' offices of 100, 200, 300,000 square foot facilities that I don't know that any one of us would want to work in ever. And too often we relegate our facility manager to the boiler room or to a chain link area in a storage facility or somewhere in a back building where they store the trailers and lawnmowers and stuff, instead of seeing them as the keeper, the manager of the largest physical asset that most churches have. I mean, kind of put that in perspective. Think about the millions of dollars of physical assets that your church owns, and they're responsible for that. Now, I realize churches don't exist to build buildings, or at least I hope you don't. Growing up in a church, I totally get the whole, the church is not the building, the people are the church, and so on and so forth. But in North America, how many of us could survive for very many weeks without a building to meet in? Now, that building might be a rented school. It still needs a building. Yes, the home church movement, it continues to beat drums, and I'm not anti-home church, but for the majority of us, we rely on physical buildings in order to function as a church. So what's role number one? And I cannot see what that says. There we go. Face reality. Embrace the value of your facility. My guess is all of you are getting every year or 2 years a statement from your insurance company as to what its insurance value is. My guess is most of those are understated in one form or another, particularly given the astronomical increase in construction costs the last several years. So one of your first realities is understand this is a complex commercial structure. Don't think of it as just the place where people go and worship and whatnot. It is a complex building, and it requires significant professionalism to maintain and manage it. Facing your reality of operation costs, going back to that $525 to $750 a square foot in your capital reserve, how does that relate to how you currently are budgeting and spending money accordingly? Are you spending too little or too much? I did an assessment for a church a couple of years ago that was 200,000 square feet, and they were spending $2.10 a square foot on utilities. Okay, I said you need to be between $1 and $1.50. So even on the high end, they were nearly 60 cents a square foot, too high. On 200,000 square feet, that's $60,000. That's $120,000 a year. When we got looking at it, what we found is their facility manager didn't know how to run their building automation system, so he let it just run day and night. So what ends up happening when you then go to next year's budget? Oh, you take that $2.10, Oh yeah, that's what we spent. Let's add 3% to it next year. Now all of a sudden, you've now exacerbated the fact that you're already spending too much money. So make sure you understand, am I spending too little or am I spending too much in certain areas? Is the facility team incorporated into your culture? This is a big one. I've got two guys on my staff that both were facility managers at fairly large facilities, one in Dallas, one in Seattle, Washington. And both of them tell horror stories of how their team felt like the truly redheaded stepchildren, no offense to redheads, I married one, of the staff, that they felt like outsiders. That I've got one facility manager that I know really well in Dallas right now who told me they had a staff Christmas party and didn't even invite me because they knew that we needed to take care of the building. That's not setting a very good signal to your facility team if you don't see them incorporated in the culture. Now, one of the questions I get asked regularly is, should we insource or outsource our cleaning? And the answer is always yes. Okay. People that have switched from insource to outsource, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. People that go from outsource to insource, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. What we have found financially, it doesn't always make a real huge difference. More of it is how you see your culture. Do you want the ability to just call up the company and say, hey, please don't send John over here anymore. I don't like the way his attitude is, and they take care of it, versus you having to deal with HR problems? Or do you want your team to feel like they're part of a facility ministry team and not just part of the janitorial staff? So I think how you see your team and how you fit them into culture is going to be critical. Is your facility manager a valued and respected member of your leadership team, not just a member of your staff? Are they part of the leadership team? When you have staffing meetings and you start planning VBS or a conference or some other major initiative that is going to require the facility, do you involve your facility manager in that initial planning and discussion? Not so that they can be the naysayer. That's not the point. And I understand that many times it feels like they're always the, oh, we can't do that. Oh, it's going to cost us this. And sometimes it feels that way because that's the world they deal with. But to not get their input, number one, minimizes their role, and you may overlook something. How many of you allow your staff to just tape up things on the wall, on the painted walls anytime they want for Christmas decorations? Okay. Think about all the touch-up paint that your facility team has to do when there's other options to tack things up on the wall other than just using Scotch tape. Fully vet the inevitable costs of capital reserves. Make sure you have a grasp on what are your capital reserves going to be over the next 20, 30, 40 years, and understand how much you need to be setting aside, and then thinking through what, if I were doing this for a business and I was setting aside money because we own a building, would I just let it sit there in my general ledger without any interest growing on it? Or would I find a way to know that it's going to be in the long term, and I'm going to put it in either CDs or money market or maybe or treasury bonds or something that I can at least get some return on my money? Again, being a good steward of everything that God's entrusted to us. Fully vet the staffing requirements of your facility. Now, this is a number that is, for most of you, not going to fit into your budget. But the best run facilities have one full-time equivalent for every 35,000 square feet. This is not for janitorial. This is only for general maintenance. Janitorial should be one for every 25,000 square feet. Now, we have set a BHAG. Everyone's familiar with a BHAG from reading Jim Collins' Good to Great. Our BHAG is to help churches get to a 1 to 75,000 square foot at the efficiency of a 1 to 35,000 square foot. That is what I've challenged our team, is to come from systems, processes, best practices, technology to get us to that point, because I only know a handful of churches that I've ever worked with that had a 1 to 35, but that is the best practice. Fully grasp the impact of understaffing and underfunding. So I've already shared, those are the two empirical causes of deferred maintenance. Because you don't have enough money, you don't have enough staff, so it gets deferred. It's fairly simple. And then your facility is a complex commercial building. So I put this little note down here on the bottom here is, most secular organizations relate a return on investment and long-term cost with the managing of the facility. I live 2 miles from a Chick-fil-A. God bless America. Well, about 2 years ago, they bulldozed that Chick-fil-A. It was 25 years old. It was the highest grossing Chick-fil-A in North Carolina. I'm thinking, why would you bulldoze it? Well, they know it doesn't fit their method of doing business today. They needed to do the double drive-through. They needed to change the kitchen layout. Well, churches don't think in those terms. We don't think of our buildings in such a way that we're going to build it and we know in 20, 25 years, we're going to bulldoze and start over again. In light of that, we're more like an office building or a hospital or something like that, where you need to think about what is your ROI on your long-term costs. There may not be a monetary ROI, but how do you not denigrate the ministry, the money set aside for ministry, by having to rob Peter to pay Paul to take care of things that should have been inevitable, and you set aside money in the first place. So role number two that I encourage XPs on. When was the last time you had an open and honest conversation with the facility team? Such as, how are you doing personally and at home? They are people just like everybody else on your staff. Are you really talking to them how they're doing? Have you asked them, what are your dreams and aspirations? I just finished the book Dream Manager. I don't know if anybody's ever read that. So it's a really cool book on how to work with your staff to learn their dreams and build an opportunity for them to live out their dreams. So how are you doing personally? How are you doing at home? How are your kids doing? How's your wife? How's your work environment? Do you have what you need? Are we treating you well? Is everything going well here? Are the resources or tools you need to do your job better? I'm not thinking that anybody here is going to wave a magic wand and just give everybody their wishes and wants. But to at least not ask to ask the question shows that you've got interest, even if it's not a no, but it's not now. It gives them hope that you're at least listening to them. Are you getting the support that you need? Are the decisions you need me to make as the XP here that I can make that can remove an obstacle for you? Think about what you do with your C leaders and when you do your reviews with them annually. This is probably a question that you ask is what decisions can I make that will help you get across the finish line of where you want to take your ministry? Well, if we see facilities as a ministry and not just a task and function, we should be asking those same type of questions. What do you see coming down the path that we need to be prepared for? Hey, I was up on the roof the other day and I see some areas where I can start to see the underlayment underneath that rubber roof. I think we need to start planning on getting that roof repaired and replaced. Well, if you had a capital reserve fund, it wouldn't be such an ouch to you because it'd be okay. When do you think we'll need to do it? A year or 2 years? Okay, we'll go out and get me some pricing and we'll plan and we'll coordinate it around our church schedule. Versus, oh crap, we need to start thinking about how are we going to raise $500,000 to replace our flat roofs? Then how do we attack our deferred maintenance? What's our process here? You may be in an older facility that has a lot of deferred maintenance, and maybe you're going to do a refresh of your building or a renovation project. If that's the case, think through, do I need to attack that deferred maintenance now, or will it be taken care of as part of my renovation project? But then how do I avoid getting deferred maintenance next time around? So be thinking about how that all plays out. Role number 3 is to listen, and for real this time, not just say you're going to listen. it is great to ask questions, but really listening is paramount. Even if you have to do a Zoom meeting and use Fathom like Tim does so he can remember what he said on his last coaching call. Ask the question after the question. You may ask, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Okay, so is your wife still, working at her job? Are your kids, how are they doing in school? What's that question afterwards? We so often ask the initial question and we don't go to that next question that really starts to peel back the onion. Don't stop at the initial response. Try to keep them engaged and talking. Again, remember that your facility staff are still just people. They have wants, they have aspirations, they have desires and goals. Push and dig deeper. So many people on the facility teams that I have worked with have what I'd consider a hard shell. They look like they're hard to penetrate and get down to. But when you really do, and they start opening up, you find out they're a ball of goo. And they have great emotions. They have great insights that you can learn from as the XP that can help you think through what's the best way to steward our facility. There's not a one and done. This is not a, hey, once a year I'm going to ask my facility manager how he's doing, and then I'll wait until next year's anniversary and I'll do it again. This is something that you need to circle back with, particularly if they share something with you that is meaningful. When was the last time you asked your facility manager, is there anything that we can be praying for you for? Is there anything that we can help that your staff is dealing with that we can pray for them? And then the fourth role for the XP is to take action. Prioritize the information that you learn from your facility team, whether it's in what you're spending in operations, where you are with capital reserves, what blind spots might you have, how's your staffing, do you have potential attrition because of some of the staffing that you have. Prioritize that information, adjust cultural paradigms. If you're not already seeing your staff, your facility staff, as part of the ministry team, I strongly encourage you to start thinking about how do you incorporate them into the ministry team. Establish a plan to address the above, even if it means it's a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, to at least start to address, how am I going to handle this with the team? How can we start increasing our operational budget to get to a level that we can avoid deferred maintenance? Okay, we're going to add 25 cents a square foot to general maintenance this year. And then next year, we're going to try to add another 25 cents a square foot. You're not going to do it overnight, but start thinking about how can you address this on a plan that's going to make them feel that they've been heard. Include that team in the process as well. As you start building those plans, get their input, get their feedback on things, and help. I think we all know, you guys are all successful managers. The more it is their idea, the more buy-in that they're going to bring to the table. Again, remember all of the things that you guys do in leading your other ministerial staff. It's the same principles in leading your facility team as it is leading them. Help them see that you're part of the solution, that you're in this with them. You may not be able to wave a magic wand. You may not be able to give them everything that they want. And rightfully so, you probably shouldn't give them everything that they want. It's like giving your AV and tech directors everything they want. You would go bankrupt in a hurry. Fund the plan as is reasonable. You don't have to solve it overnight. Act on your plan. Nothing would be worse than for you to lay out a plan for them, have some milestones that you're going to shoot for, and then do nothing. Nothing would be more demoralizing than that. Then update them regularly, especially if things have to change or get delayed. Hey, COVID hit number 2. We're going to have to slow this up. We're going to have to back off. We're going to have to do some things, and we can't do this until 2026 now instead of 2025. As long as you're keeping them involved in the decisions, that'll be great. And with all of this, it's kind of a rinse and repeat. It's real critical for anything that you do with your facility staff is to encourage them to see this as a ministry opportunity and not just taking care of a building. If we can embrace the fact that it's facility stewardship and they are ministers of the facility, and that what they do matters in ministry, what they do matters with a first-time guest. Those are important things for us to understand, is what would happen to your first-time guest experience? Using Mark's old book, First Impressions, Mark Waltz's book. I can't tell you how many times I've given that book away to churches. But what would happen to your first-time guest experience and their first impressions if your carpet was always stained and your bathroom smelled like a barnyard and so on and so forth? What would happen to those first-time experiences? And it's been said, we make up our decision pretty quickly, 7 seconds, 7 minutes, depending on which guru's book you read. But it happens pretty quickly, and it's generally before they hear the sermon. And it's their experience getting out of the car, walking into the building, going to the restroom. Your foyer, your restroom, and your worship space are the 3 places nearly every one of your guests are going to experience. Every time they come, they're going to experience those 3 areas. And majority of them are also going to experience your kids' area. So is it the kind of place that you would want to come back to as a first-time guest?